Hello, guys. It's Shane Davis here, 20-year comic book veteran, mainly DC Comics. I've worked with Legendary, worked a little bit around the movie end of things, created a lot of characters for DC Comics that have been worked into TV shows, video games, and whatnot. And I'm here to talk to you today with the beautiful, lovely, sometimes will make me a sandwich, Yanzi Lynn.
Hi.
And today, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about the death of New God. I know, nice little name there. New Gods, the movie, and The Trench. DC canning both of them. And what does this mean for Time Warner going forward, especially with the DC superheroes? And we're going to get into this a little bit, but please look down below, hit that subscribe button, guys. YouTube's not been too friendly with our subscribers lately, so please make sure you're still subscribed. Consider sharing the video. Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think of this news. Now, I'm of the opinion, the other day I was like, do I want to see the Snyder cut? And this is after Zack Snyder came onto the scene and said, I got nothing to do with you guys on Geeks and Gamers. And I'm kind of like, bad taste in my mouth. And then I started to think, is it Zack Snyder the reason I don't want to give 4 hours to a superhero movie? And then I started to think about it a little bit more, and I'm like, I might just be tired of superhero movies. I haven't been rewatching any of the Marvel movies lately. I got through WandaVision feeling kind of a little under the weather, not liking superheroes for like the first time in my life for the most part. The comics been ruined. We've talked about that on this show. Identity politics, any politics being shoved into superhero franchises right now. Kind of like the new Superman show, but still kind of like, I'm still kind of tired of superheroes. So let's get into it. What's the news today?
Somehow they decided to can all these movies. Think what? New Guy has been under development for 3 years, maybe? I'm not sure how long The Trench has been under development for. But considering that that's directed by James Wan, who made over $1 billion with Aquaman, you'd think that they would have a little more confidence in that guy, don't you think?
Yes, but The Trench was basically those fish bad guys that Aquaman was fighting in the movie, and they really didn't seem like they deserved their own movie. Actually, when the news came out, I kind of read it as Warner Brothers was taking a wild stab trying to come up with a weird alien sci-fi underwater movie. And there's been a couple of these, one recently with Kristen Stewart, I think, and it really didn't perform that well. So they're probably reading some of the data there. And here's the thing, the DC, a superhero movie, a comic book maybe isn't always the best thing for a movie, even if it would have tied into the DC universe in a weird way. And we are seeing more and more failure with the DC universe lately. Even with Suicide Squad 2, people really aren't that interested in the trailer they got.
Yeah, from what I've seen on Twitter especially, because Twitter is a great gauge of seeing how excited fans can be sometimes, they just don't have the same level of excitement as they did for Suicide Squad 2 as they did for Suicide Squad 1.
Well, and there was a little detour in between with, Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey. So yeah, maybe Birds of Prey is actually hurting Suicide Squad 2. I can't
maybe
say
it's
one way or the
Harley
other.
fatigue, don't you think?
Harley fatigue
everywhere now. Maybe there's just too much Harley.
Yeah, a little bit, just a little bit. So, New Gods. Some people go like, well, what? Gee willikers, what is New God, Shane? Well, it has a lot to do with Darkseid. Now, I have a theory, and this is a theory, but I believe the New Gods movie was put on the list of things in production. DC Comics, Warner Brothers, however you want to say it, AT&T, was very interested in doing a New Gods thing. And you go, well, why? Darkseid. Actually, a lot of even the New Gods book was a lot of it for people that don't know. Jack Kirby left Marvel Comics to basically go do all this fourth world stuff. And in the end, legend says, I don't know if it's true, DC Comics was letting Kirby make all these comics basically because they wanted Darkseid. Darkseid is this great big villain for the DC universe. But in his original comic pages, he had nothing to do with like things like Superman, Batman, Justice League, any of that. He was tied to a character called Orion, which was his son, kind of half son, kind of given away to New Genesis, like trading sons for a sign of peace. It's a really weird sci-fi kind of superhero space adventure, like utopia type, grand scale adventure, like kind of a Game of Thrones in space. What's interesting about this is my theory is they were interested in doing this just to get to Darkseid, then to use Darkseid in other DC properties after the fiasco that was the Whedon Justice League. With the Snyderverse, it came along and all of a sudden popped that Darkseid cherry. Don't really need to do New Gods anymore. That's my opinion. They already got to Darkseid now. And whether or not this movie performed well, I don't know how DC feels about it, but I don't think they like it too much because they automatically were severing the cord between you guys, if you're a fan, if you're a Snyder guy, and the studio. They called you toxic. Snyder was like, I got nothing to do with you guys, even though you're working on a charity front. And look, you got your Darkseid. They don't really need a New Gods movie anymore. Now, the Trench movie, I feel like that's part of this, but I feel like the other part is maybe these superhero movies aren't performing that well anymore.
More importantly, superhero movies, everyone's saying, oh, the box office has been great. Billions and billions of dollars in the past few years. That is domestically. Unfortunately, there's this market outside the world. It's called global box office. It's beyond the USA. Let's look at some numbers over here. You can see the Dark Knight that was back in 2008. It grossed almost $500 million worldwide.
Right.
By the time we get to Aquaman in 2018, it only grossed $335 million. Even though there's still that $1 billion box office for both of these movies.
Aquaman was considered a big success.
It was considered a big success. But see, a lot of that money was derived from the domestic market. And if there's something we learned from COVID, is unfortunately the domestic market is very, very, very slow to recover. Let's look at this for some example. So Godzilla vs. Kong opened this past weekend. It made $121 million outside of the US market. I believe in the US market, it made less than $10 million because a lot of people in the States, they either aren't going to the theater because they have HBO Max and they watch it on HBO Max already, or the theaters are shut down. For example, the theater in our town has shut down permanently. So we couldn't go and watch it even.
Like permanently, like they ripped the signs off and they have a sign posted to get gift cards refunded. Like permanently, they're gone. So some of these theaters are shut down. They're not opening back up in the States. And the theater industry waved goodbye, invested all in the streaming. But domestic box office, like Yanzi's saying, in other countries is still a big of the way to recoup the money for financing these movies, even if it's specifically geared towards streaming now, which a lot of this stuff, you have to understand, like Kong versus Godzilla, this is something that was meant to be, watched in 3D with high definition, surround sound, all of these things in a movie theater. Okay, something of this big scale and magnitude. Now, a lot of people in other countries, they have their theaters open right away. Where do you want to see two giant titans fight to the death? And you're going to want to go to the theater, right?
According to Singapore papers, Godzilla vs. Kong actually grossed way more compared to Wonder Woman 1984. Now, when you look at the statistics of how internationally some of these movies are doing so much better, and then you look at how the international box office for superhero movies has been on a steady decline in the recent years, compared to the high of $500 million back in 2008. Maybe the international market is just not that interested in superhero movies anymore. And when you're faced with the unfortunate fact that the domestic box office probably won't recover for another year, what are you going to do? You're going to go after the international box office. That's where all the cheddar is.
All right, that sweet, sweet international cheddar. I like my cheddar from all around the world. And you have to understand when we're talking about the international box office, this isn't unique to superhero films. Even like the Transformer franchise, the Michael Bay movies, they would try to kind of pander or kind of have the robots fight in different locations that were either in Japan or have cameos from like people that were from China pop up in things. And like one of the scenes like Transformers 4 or 5, when stuff like that happens, it's kind of out of place and jarring for a split second. But the reason it's happening is because that international box office is a big enough portion of the pie. You got to reach for it. Now, what happens ideally for the studios, though, is they don't get all of that money. They just get part of that money. They only get like maybe they lose like 30% or 40%, something like that to that country and that distribution of that movie in that country. Sure. But that is still helping the production costs. Plus, if you look at some of these other countries like Japan or China, things like monsters or dragons or robots have a different type of sensibility. It's more commercial over there. You have to understand they come off, especially Japan. You're talking about a Gundam culture, or you're talking like kaiju type monster culture where they're used to seeing these type of things either in like TV shows like Ultraman or something or Godzilla movies. So these things are kind of more obviously studios know these things have legs in another country and even merchandising legs in another country. And oftentimes they'll actually deal with Toho and other companies like that they have like what they're hoping for is like a type of cross pollination where they can sell it in multiple places at once. And some of these studios on a financing scenario of saying what do we put in on this movie, they actually do estimates like that. They actually try to say, well, like Legendary, whether it was a good movie or a bad movie, The Wall they were doing with like Matt Damon, they actually thought they could sell that in China along with America. What did it? No. But some bean counter somewhere actually looks at that on paper and says, we can do this. We can make this work financially. So the international box office on a foundation level of a movie going into production on any level is a factor when it comes down to greenlighting something.
Let me offer a cultural perspective on this too. So if we're talking about something like Godzilla vs. Kong, at the very basics, it is a movie about monsters fighting and destroying humanity. That is a story that's universal in every culture around the world, whether it is in China or in the USA. That story resonates. On the other hand, the superhero is a very uniquely American thing. You have all these people with superpowers running around in brightly colored capes. Over in the West, it's called superheroes. Now, for something like in Asia, you know what we call that? We call that Journey to the West. That's our equivalent of a superhero movie, if you want to call it that. So when culturally there isn't that much connect anymore, it becomes hard to say, okay, let's sell our superhero stuff to you guys who happen to have your own type of superheroes. I guess bottom line I'm trying to say is that when you try to create something that will appeal to an international audience, something that has a more universal appeal, like say giant monsters, will definitely sell better internationally than say guys in bright, colorful costumes saving the world. So if it's going to be like that, what are you going to do? You can't make two different movies for two different markets. Nobody has the budget for that. So you're going to make that one movie that sells better. And what is it going to be? Monsters.
Right. Because kids love dinosaurs. And that's the thing. Everybody loves dinosaurs. So Godzilla, very close to dinosaurs. Honestly, maybe New Gods doesn't exist anymore because of Tom King. Let's just say it. Maybe Tom King hates Asians. This was clear with Tom King trying to get rid of the Jay Lees from the comic industry. And what good? How are they ever going to sell New Gods overseas when you have Tom King at the base, at the center of this?
Right, I forgot. The Chinese government seriously distrusts the CIA.
Oh, yeah. You got the CIA involved. You got all this craziness going on. Plus, Tom King's comics haven't really been selling that well lately, and not many people have been giving great reviews. Are you throwing good money behind a bad idea or a bad creator, or just is the script no good? Maybe there's not enough confidence to move forward with it as far as the studio sees. Or maybe this is just the pan out of the Snyder cut that came out on HBO Max. There's a lot of speculation here of why they're cutting back, but obviously there is some data that maybe superhero movies are on the decline, period. So I don't know, guys. Look down below. Subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, share the video, please. Let's get the word out about this channel, get these subs up if we can. And also want to say a big thank you to you guys. We are shot way over $103,000 on Starlight Cat's Merlion Rising. Probably the most diverse concept of a book. Little Girl, Big Adventure, Cats in Space, up on Indiegogo right now. Go swing by, get yourself a copy while it's still up, and we will catch you guys again with another video. Take care.